Your landlord calls you today and says your rent has increased from 500,000 naira to 1 million naira. And if you don't pay, you should prepare to move out. But can a landlord legally do that? So you are wondering, can my landlord really do this? Can a landlord increase rent whenever they want? Do tenants have any rights at all? Let's start with the first truth. Yes, landlords can increase rent. Property owners are generally entitled to review their rental charges from time to time. A landlord cannot increase rent just because they feel like it. There are legal procedures that must be followed. Many landlords believe that because they own the property, they can wake up one morning and double the rent without discussing it with the tenant. That is not the position of the law. A landlord may notify a tenant of a rent increase in several ways. The notice may come directly from the landlord, through the landlord's lawyer, an estate agent, a property manager, a caretaker acting on the landlord's behalf, or even through verbal communication. A tenant should be given reasonable and timely notice of the proposed rent increase. It should not be a situation where the landlord waits until a few weeks or even a month before the rent is due to suddenly announce that the rent has been increased. For example, if your annual rent is due on 1st December, it would generally be unfair for the landlord to wait until 1st November or just 2 weeks before the due date to inform you that your rent has been increased. By that time, you may have already budgeted based on the existing rent and may not have enough time to make financial arrangements or consider other housing options. The purpose of giving notice is to allow the tenant sufficient time to prepare for the increase. The early notice will help the tenant make an informed decision, negotiate if necessary, or decide whether to renew the tenancy or seek alternative accommodation. While the law recognizes a landlord's right to review rent, that right should be exercised fairly and reasonably. Giving adequate notice promotes transparency, reduces disputes, and fosters a healthy landlord-tenant relationship. Many tenants do not know that the law protects them from certain unfair practices. Some important rights of tenants include right to peaceful possession. You have the right to enjoy the property peacefully without unnecessary interference. Your rights as a tenant. The second right is protection from harassment. A landlord cannot constantly invade your privacy, remove your roof, disconnect services, or harass you simply because of a disagreement. The second right is protection from harassment. A landlord cannot constantly invade your privacy, remove your roof, disconnect services, or harass you simply because of a disagreement. The third right is protection from arbitrary rent increase. The law seeks to protect tenants from unreasonable and excessive rent increases. This means that landlords cannot simply choose any amount they like and force it on tenants without following due process. Under Section 37 of the Lagos State Tenancy Law 2011, a tenant who believes that a rent increase is unreasonable can approach the court. The court can examine the circumstances and determine whether the increase is fair or unreasonable. What if the rent increase is unreasonable? What have the courts said? In this case, the landlord attempted to increase rent. The court held that such increase is merely an offer. The tenant free to exit. The landlord cannot force the increase on the tenant. A tenant who wants to challenge a rent increase should ensure that they are fulfilling their own obligations under the tenancy. Rights and responsibilities go together. If the landlord proposes a new rent and you accept it, the new rent becomes binding. So when I say landlord cannot simply wake up one morning and increase rent however they like, what exactly do I mean? First, the landlord should communicate the proposed increase to the tenant. Rent should not be increased by surprise or through threats. Second, the landlord should give the tenant an opportunity to consider the proposed rent. In law, a rent increase is generally treated as an offer which the tenant may accept or reject. Proper procedure for rent increases is often misunderstood. Let me explain. First, review the tenancy agreement for rent review clauses. Ensure law provided proper notice. Negotiate with the landlord if needed. And fourth, seek legal remedies if the increase is unreasonable. So, can your landlord increase your rent? Yes. But can they increase it however they like without following proper procedures? No. Knowing your rights can save you from costly mistakes and unnecessary disputes. If you found this video helpful, like, share, and subscribe.